stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always think of Mike Rich.
Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
Marshall Public Schools develops the potential of each learner for success in a changing world.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It's approved. Public forum. Anybody in the public that'd like to approach the board, now's your time. Move on to our presentations. First one's our English Learner Program Update. Welcome. You should be talking to the microphone, that way we can be all on the broadcast, please.
Hello, everyone. I have brought a couple more friends with me. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
I'm Kari Ellers, teacher at the middle school.
Mary Loft, I'm a high school ELL teacher.
So today we're here to talk about our EL program, our English Language Learner Program at Marshall Public Schools. And a lot of times I'll get asked, who are our students? Where are our students coming from? What languages do they speak? And I have to tell you that from when I put this PowerPoint together early January to today, we've seen an increase of EL students. So on this slide I have it fixed, on the next slide I don't. But so as of today, we have 398 EL students, and that's up about 16 or 17 students from just a couple weeks ago. So we continue to see huge growth and continued enrollment almost daily at all of our different schools. And listed there are our 10 different languages that are spoken in our EL program, but district-wide we have 21 different languages that are spoken. So we have students who may have been in our EL program who have now exited the program because they've met the English language proficiency requirements. Or we just have other students in our district whose families speak other languages but were proficient in English and did not need to be in the English language program. And I've numbered some of the different languages, and actually this is already a change too from a year ago. A year ago our top language that was spoken was Spanish, and now it is Somali. So you can see that I've numbered them 1, 2, and 3. So our top 3 languages currently are Somali, Spanish, and Karen. Here's my chart that I didn't get updated. And you can see the growth from 2011-12 to currently, so that January 2016 should say 398. 2 weeks ago it was, early January it was 381. So another thing that I get asked often is, who qualifies to be an English language student? And so what I wanted to do today is talk about the statute that dictates what we have to do at Marshall Public Schools for our English language students. And so this slide just gives you that statute number and then tells you that a student who is in kindergarten through grade 12 who meets these 2 requirements is considered an English language student. So the first one is that the student or their parents speak another language other than English. So it was either the first language that they were raised with is other than English, or it's in their home it's spoken, a different language is spoken, not English, or it is their primary language that they speak. That is one of the criteria. And every student who enters the district has to complete a home language questionnaire, and that's how we determine that information. The second criteria is that we determine that they need to do a screener. So we do an interview with them and determine whether their skills are low or not. And if they are, we give them the WIDA Access Placement Test, the WAPT. It's a screener. So next, we talk about just the general requirements for our program. So if any district has 1 or more EL students, we have to have a minimum of one of these things in place. So first we have to have our exit and entrance criteria identified and applied uniformly to all of our students. I didn't bring my sheets with today, so I have to be able to see this better. If you would like to learn more about our program, the things that I'm talking about tonight are found in our EL handbook, and this is the link to that site. And then this is taken right out of our EL handbook, the steps that we have to take when we are identifying an EL student. And I've already mentioned them. We have to have them complete a home language questionnaire. And then if they meet one of those 3 criteria, we do that oral interview, and we describe who administers that. And in our handbook, you can also see what that actual interview is and then how we score that. Then the third thing is, and we give them the assessment, the WAPT. And the WAPT has a score of 1 to 6. And if the student scores less than 5, they qualify. But we also look at MCAs, NWAs, Access, or AIMS-1 data also. And then we also look at any previous school information if they've been in a previous district. They also said we have to have exit criteria. And so I've shared, I'll show you K4, 5-8, and 9-12 different. They each have a slightly different criteria. And students have to meet 2 of the 5 to actually exit from the program. And you'll notice they're all very similar. We use the Access test, which is a test that's given yearly to all EL students K through 12. And that is in February. We actually start, our window opens 1st of next month, and then it runs through March. And we have those scores back usually end of May, but for sure by the fall. They could be proficient in the MCAs, in the reading MCAs. They could be at or above the normed RIT for NWEA scores. And for grade 4, we could use AIMS-Web, or it could just be a recommendation from the EL teacher, building administrator, or counselor. So those are some. The AIMS-Web is the one that's more specific to the lower levels. So 5-8 has that as well. So I just turned the slide. I don't know if you noticed, but it now is grades 5 through 8. They're all very similar. So again, a student would have to meet 2 of these criteria to actually exit the EL program. And then 9-12, the only one that's gone is that AIMS-Web piece, because we don't use AIMS-Web at 9 through 12. If a student does exit the program, though, we do what's called monitoring, and students can be monitored up to 2 years. They are not flagged as EL in the system, but our EL teachers just monitor to make sure that they're doing okay, that they haven't, their grades aren't slipping, that we're not seeing a lot of absences. So the teachers are responsible for their caseload and the students that they monitor. So moving on, some more of our program requirements. We have to have a written plan of service. So what type of service are those students receiving from their teachers when they're in their EL time? And then we need to provide professional development to our teachers ongoing. So I provided a list of the services that are provided by building. And I did not mention this earlier, but when we identify students using that WAPT when they come in, or an Access score, we qualify them as newcomers, beginners, intermediate, or advanced based on that score. And so you can see that we've put all of those in Parkside, Westside, middle school, and the high school. And it just gives you what type of service that they might receive at each building. And we do have a little bit of differences by building. We have more options of sheltered or co-teaching maybe at the high school, just because of that, the level that they're at. We need them to be in the general ed classes so that they're getting their credits, but we need that support for the EL.
Can you explain what push-in means?
Yeah, that would be if an EL teacher and a student, an EL student, went into the general ed classroom, maybe for a project or a content area or a specific standard that they needed, but it was just limited to that, and then they did pull out. And we do use National Geographic, Reach, and Insight for our curriculum, for our pullout. It's very strong. It's very good. And these ladies will probably reference that when they talk too. And then some other big criteria for our EL program is that we can't isolate students. And so I hear a lot, why do they have to be in the general ed classroom? They're not ready. It's in the statute that they cannot be isolated from the other students. And then the number 5, that if it's a non-verbal subject like art and music, we have to make sure we're providing that the same manner that we would provide it to other students. And that's a big deal. And I think that sometimes people forget that they want them to wait till they get more proficient to be in their classes, but we really can't by state statute.
All right, so obviously with the numbers that Amanda showed you, we are seeing lots of EL students coming now to our district, which we're very lucky, obviously, to be adding more staff. It's a necessity. I was just talking to Mary Kay Thomas the other day, and she was talking to somebody in Worthington. They have 30 EL teachers there, and that's an hour down the road. So we're seeing an increased need for EL staff. Most of us are licensed now, which is a positive. It's about 8 different classes that a lot more colleges are offering now to get the certification. We do a lot of research, especially Amanda, with what's working. What's working with a school that's our size, our district, our town, what our town has to offer, and what are we looking for in the future as to what we're going to try and how effective that might or might not be. And I think the big key up here is ongoing staff training. I don't know that there's ever a meeting that goes unsaid in our buildings that says that teachers don't want more awareness and more training with how to work with EL students. And the thing of it is the training that we work with for EL students is the exact same training that you can use for all kids. So it's not like it's all that specific towards, one certain student in your class. You can use that SIOP training for any child in your classroom. The last one says increased training for the minority advocates. I'm not sure if a lot of you know this, but we use our advocates a lot. And it's not just translating services. They're at some of our meetings. They're being a liaison between just different cultures. They work together when it comes to sharing ideas and implementing new strategies that can help the teachers in the schools work with the families. And I only see in the future our minority advocate needs going up and probably increasing that number at some point.
Kari, what's SIOP? What's that an acronym for?
Sheltered Instructional Operational Program.
Thank you.
I'm sure you knew that one, right?
Sorry, I should have spelled it out.
And actually, a lot of teachers have started to be trained in SIOP, and Amanda has just signed up a bunch of teachers for a big training.
It was in my board report this month that we'll be starting on a group of 25 teachers, having 3 days of training and bringing in Tina Wagner, who has specialized in this area for the last 19 years, working with from basically birth to adults, second language learners. She has a PhD, and I've got a great group coming out of her. So we're going to do this pilot, and if it's successful, we will offer one of those training sessions for our staff. And then she'll provide ongoing support as well, helping develop the lesson plans, doing demonstration lessons, coming in and watching lessons to give feedback. So we really want it to be a well-rounded support and staff development piece.
As teachers, we've also involved families into the program. At the beginning of this summer, we had a K-12 welcome back meeting here at the middle school where we did some training, we did some forms, we had our minority advocates there, just so the students and the families could get to know the teachers and the administration. And in, I believe it was in October, was our first round of Corinne students. We had a welcome meeting just for that population, and we will do so again when our next wave of Corinne students come. And that's great for both them and for the teachers, so we can put faces and names and parents and just making that connection. And this year we have really worked hard at doing some parent meetings at all levels. At the K4 level, they had a fun evening where they got educational supplies, some games, some foods, just making those connections. At the high school level, we had families come in. We trained them on Parent Portal, on summer and after-school programs, and again, just making that connection.
Day before the big post on birthdays and what they mean.
Do you get a good turnout at those?
This last one, at our high school one, we probably had 20 families, and at the elementary school, 40. It was timing because many of those students are in Project Success, and it was just kind of a timing. They were getting on the bus to go home, but the workshop was at that time.
Though one of our K-4 teachers is here. Nancy, do you remember how many parents you had?
I think we had 20-some students and 80-some parents, but that was that a 2-hour day start that day? I think there was some other issues too, but whoever came had a great time. We had a great time meeting the parents. We played musical chairs and did a lot of fun things.
I think something to point out too is the day that the middle school and high school did it. High school, it was really, really cold out. We have a big issue with transportation in this town, as you all know. And we're normally used to Turkey Valley having a week or two off right around Christmas time or right after Christmas. And we were expecting that again this year. And it turned out that they had to work instead. And so when you deal with people having those issues plus different hours of shift work, we just do the best we can. And if, we invite them all and we hope that they come, but it's just like anything else in the school, you're never going to get everyone here. So just opening the doors to communication. Yep. And the advocates a lot of times are transporting the families. So not only are they helping us translate and make connections and get people written down for the dentist or the doctor, all that stuff, but they're transporting. So they are very busy people.
We get frequently asked questions, so you probably have some questions for us, but we threw some out that we hear quite often. And the first one, I work with newcomers, new to country that come to the high school. Some have some schooling in their language, some have none. And so will those students graduate? And it's going to be very difficult, but it can be done with the programming we have, summer school, after school, their work ethic, their parent support, and how much literacy they have in their language. But it's going to be a difficult road. I would hope we have more supports in the future to help them beat those language barriers in order to graduate.
So do they have to graduate before 18?
You can stay in school till you're age 21. Another question: do you speak other languages? Pequeño, little bit of Spanish. I'm picking up along the way. How do you teach these students if you don't speak Somali? We have a great curriculum, like Amanda said, which answers some of these questions that work. It's designed for English language learners. The use of the devices has been key. Often my students are on Google Translate. It's not always accurate, but they are trying to find out the words. At my level, we use a lot of pictures, verbal gestures. So teaching and learning gets definitely done. So
they're very engaged.
I would say
very
yes.
excited to learn.
They're very excited to learn, even though it's very difficult with that language barrier. But they are. We have good attendance at the high school level. They show up for school all the time, and they are definitely engaged.
What do ELL teachers teach the student? Well, that's a really loaded question. Carrie probably wrote that one down. But we try to teach them, all the standards that all the other kids their ages are doing. I mean, that's our goal. But I guess speaking personally, I teach my kids a lot more things than that. I teach them how to shake someone's hand. We talk about questions that probably aren't very socially acceptable to ask people. I help them sign up for community soccer through the community services. We talk about different holidays, how people celebrate Eid, how people celebrate maybe Christmas. They ask me what's the difference between a Somali and a Karen person. I mean, we unfortunately, there's a lot of tangents that go out throughout the day, but I feel like that's our responsibility, because at some point these kids are going to be in our community and they're going to be doing lots of different jobs, and it's our job to not only help them with the ABCs, but just to be good people and be respectful of others. So
I would say, added to that, our 4 main domains, which we do everything Kari said, but reading, writing, listening, speaking is our 4 main domains.
And that's what the kids are tested on in the access test.
Well, John and I went into spoken Kari's class, and they're 4th graders, fifth graders. And so you think, okay, 5th graders, they're not going to care what they have to say. They've listened, they've participated. I mean, things like, what do you want to see? What are some of the things you want to see from the Marshall Valley Fair?
Well, but, I mean, they were,
It's true.
well, I accidentally told one thing that wasn't the truth when Cal put me on the spot. And they all wrote thank you letters to us. And almost everyone mentioned the one thing I got wrong. So it was good.
True confessions.
They were wonderful kids. They were very engaged, very friendly, and it was really a lot of fun to be there.
And I've also recruited Mr. Kovash to be a volunteer tutor for a couple days too. So don't worry, he's been, besides working the corner over by West Side, stop sign, he's been in my classroom too.
Jeez.
I have a lot of diverse skills.
So we would invite any of you, if you ever want to stop in. It's pretty awesome. It's really fun just to get to know these kids in a different way, and it's a really neat relationship that we have with these families, and their parents really teach their children that teachers are like right here. I mean, it's like parents, teachers, and everyone else underneath. So they really value their education. Does anyone else have any questions? We could probably talk all day.
I'll say I know your jobs are not easy.
So I think if we could, we feel we have a lot of successes, and one of them we brought with us. Her name is Muna Mohammed. She is now at SMSU. She's a graduate of Marshall High School. And we just want her to say a couple of things about her experience at Marshall. 2000. Okay. Sorry. 2014.
Close. Yes, I did graduate 2014, and I am currently actually attending SMSU, Southwest Minnesota State University. I'm a sophomore right now, majoring in political science, and a little bit about the ESL program I was in is I started about the age when when my family first migrated to America was in 1999, and so it's basically from I'll say from kindergarten till my freshman year when I tested out of ESL. And throughout that years, I mean, my first year in America, I did not know a single word of English. So it was tough, like communicating with not only just the teachers around, but like students too who were, in there and knew English. It was pretty tough, but one thing I do remember, I don't remember a lot about my childhood, but one thing I do remember is like my ELL in freshman year and middle school year. Mrs. Dice, who's the I don't know if she's still the teacher here.
At the middle school, yeah.
She is? Okay. In the middle school, and then Mrs. Raldoff in high school, who tested me out. One thing I did like about the teachers was that they definitely do have patience, which is definitely needed in order to teach a student who does not know English. You do need patience, and for me, I wouldn't say I would have the patience because it's because the language barrier is definitely difficult between a teacher and a student, and it's not easy to teach someone who has not even a single word of what you're saying. So I highly do appreciate like my teachers in ELL that actually helped me to get where I am today and teach me English and teach me not only how to speak it but fluently, and I'm definitely blessed to have them, and it was a great experience. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion? I'll make a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
One thing I would say is in regards to policy 789, we think we have a policy where we want it to be, but we're trying to work on maybe some guidelines to accompany the policy. So maybe as an addendum or something like that. But that policy has undergone, I think, a significant amount of work, and appreciative of everybody that's waiting on it.
Any other comments? Hearing none, please vote. Is approved. Moving on to our financials. Any questions? Anything you'd like to highlight?
No, not at this point. When we get to the final budget, we'll talk a little bit more about where things stand.
Now we're moving on to our financials. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second. It's open for discussion. Yes, you want to talk on this one?
Are you talking about the bills? Yes, I'll share that with you. The bills for December, January by fund category: general fund $964,177.13. The food service fund $144,668.95. Transportation fund $130,548.41. Community services fund $13,896.35. The capital outlay fund $27,894.09. The construction fund $252,056. Debt service fund $450, and the student entrepreneurial fund $136.50. That makes a grand total of $1,533,827.43, and I would recommend approval of the claims for the period December, January. Mr. Chair.
Made a motion in second, so we'll go ahead and vote. Board form. Clerk, you have the floor first.
I handed out to everybody a little packet here from a trip that we took to Austin, Minnesota. We went there with the primary purpose of visiting our Woodson Garden Center. So it was myself, and there was about 10 of us. Pre-K teachers, kindergarten teachers, first grade, second grade. So Austin is, in regards to their school system, has a kindergarten center. All kindergartners go there. That's all that go there. They have 1 through 4 buildings, and they're more community-based. So each one of those elementary schools are located in a section there.
Neighborhood school?
Neighborhood schools, yeah. They have 1 5 through 6 school, 1 7 through 8 school, and then a high school, which is 12. In the kindergarten center, there's a little bit of information on here in regards to their total enrollment, but they have approximately 420 kindergartners. They have two different schedules. Majority of those kindergartners go through traditional school year. So that is about 13 sections that go through the traditional school year. They have also a 45-15 where kids are there for 45 days, have 15 days off, and they do that throughout the whole year. It's primarily a lot of their English learner students that are there. One of the elementary schools that are 1 through 4 is primarily an English learner elementary school. So I think a lot of the kids that are in the kindergarten 45-15 English learner end up moving, I think, to that other school. So that's kind of the makeup. You can get the demographics a little bit there. They have 53% white, 28.8% of their students are identified as English learners, about 10% are special education, and about 58% of their kids in this kindergarten center are on free and reduced lunches. If you look over to the right, there is some information in regards to some of the different things that they do. But they spend 20 minutes a day in boost-up activities or gym. The boost-up activity room, they only had one gym in this whole space. And they do these boost-up activities, and it's kind of a neat concept. It isn't what you consider normally your gym, where they're going and playing and doing those different things and activities. They actually have a learning purpose to each one of the activities they do. So they're learning some different skills, cognitive skills, while they're in the boost-up. They also have their play centers, and they spend 20 minutes a day developing social skills in this place. So there's 2 of them throughout the building. They also had another thing, greenhouse, that they're starting there, and that'll be kind of a little bit part of their science curriculum. But they're going to be growing different fruits and vegetables, and the kids will participate. So we thought that was pretty neat. They do about 30 minutes of recess, and lunch on a daily basis. If you go to the next page, they talk a lot about the benefits of having these play areas. And really what it is their classrooms are of traditional size. And then they have these combined play areas that all the classrooms will use. They were very excited about the play areas there. All the people we met with loved the concept. There were some very tenured people there that had question marks going in, I think, to this concept, and really have come a long way to supporting it and thinking it's a great thing. So if you think about our kindergarten rooms today, they all have their own play areas in the room. They all have their own bathroom, and they all have their own sinks in there, right? In Austin, they don't have that. They don't have that. It's just a traditional size classroom, and then the play areas are out, and everybody uses it. They don't have bathrooms in their classrooms. They're out in the main areas. They still have sinks in there and things like that. But the benefits that they looked at here were the limited cost of supplies, toys, and materials, because they're sharing them. The planning setup materials match the school curriculum calendar. They have multiple areas for play and social conversation. They limit the number of items that are needed because they're all sharing them. They have a shared responsibility for the setup and care of these rooms. Easy to reorder the materials. The rooms can be used for dual purpose. Space for more inquiry and exploration. It's time to extend a lesson is done. They have materials in central location, and then the rotation of the toys. They really felt like the kids, when they come back from their boost up and also the play areas, are much more engaged to learn when they get back into the classroom. So they have a lot easier time of getting to the material that they want to teach them. I thought it was a big benefit. The next page is some, I just asked Darcy to kind of, gather some aha moments from everybody that went there, different things that they saw from this Woodson Kindergarten Center. And, we went there with the primary purpose of looking at the play areas and kind of getting a feel for that, and can that be implemented here. But I would say that they came away with a lot of other great learning experiences that they saw. So I've kind of highlighted a couple of them. One of the interesting things in Austin is when they do the registration, everybody does it exactly at the same time. So all grade levels all go to the high school. At one time, it's kind of a one-stop shop. Parents can bring their kids, if they have a kindergarten or a 7th grader, or 11th grader. They all go at the same time and do the registration. I think that's different than what we do here. They do a lot of assessing of each student at that time too, when they're doing that registration. And for the kindergartners, they assess each one of these kids before they're actually entered into a kindergarten. So they do a quick assessment, the numbers go into a computer system, and then the principal is then assigning those students based off those test results into different classrooms. They have a very extensive reading curriculum, and I think our teachers that came back from that were impressed with that. They have a great secure entrance that they implemented once this was put in place, and I know that's something we're working on with our referendums. The hallways and the lockers was an open concept, so you don't have traditional lockers with doors or anything, and they said it's been a great thing for them because kids aren't getting their hands in there, slamming them on their fingers. So that was a very nice thing. They have a tremendous sensory room. On the last page in here, I kind of gave everybody a little idea of a better definition of a sensory room. But it was very well done and very elaborate and a little bit nicer than I think what we might have in some of our schools. The Boost Up program I talked a little bit about. They have a lot of success coaches to support different languages within the building. Their signages in their doors were pretty neat. So every teacher and para had a animal name. So let's just say it's Red Duck. It's kind of like on our buses. So Karen, you're the Red Duck, all right? And then that picture is above the doors, and so it made it real easy for kids to identify, where those classrooms are and where they're, I'm sure the kids go home and they say, I'm in the Red Duck room with Karen, and so they kind of know where to go throughout the building. People that were there got a lot out of that. The school hours were different for the kindergarten center, 8:30 to 2:05, and then what the teachers did from 2:05 to 3 o'clock was kind of their prep time, which is a different concept than what our teachers do today. When the kids today here in Marshall go off to gym or go off to music or something like that, that's a little bit of their prep time. So they made the day shorter for the kids and the teachers were more prep. I would say that were the big ahas, if I had to condense them for you, and then the last page is again is a little bit of that section. I believe we had a big part of putting that whole concept together. Yes. But very well done. Very impressive.
Thank you. A lot of us went up to Minnesota School Board Associations, and I think the biggest thing of that was out of a class of a school that put together a referendum education video. And they were able to put that out on the web, on YouTube, on school web page, and it seemed to engage a lot of people.
But on the video, it wasn't necessarily a vote yes or vote no. It was just giving very much informational, but it wasn't boring. It wasn't dry at all. It was great. When Monica and I went to the Shakopee CAPS, the career educational training one, just talking. Shakopee School is working with Normandale College and St. Francis Hospital and Shutterfly. And rather than the kids are in the school, and then so these people come to the school, they're actually at Shutterfly and at St. Francis Hospital. So the 10 kids at St. Francis, if they're there, St. Francis is lining up speakers and people like that to come in and talk to them. So they're there for part of their day, for 3 periods of a 7-period day. But yet they still got to meet all their requirements. It was very interesting. You going to talk about the ag one?
Sure, I could. No, we attended another one that just talked about different concepts to ag instructors play a much greater role throughout the course of a year. They play a big community role with not only with their students but with farm families. And so that we went into a discussion about extended contracts that allow them additional duty days in the summer. It doesn't fully compensate them for all the time they're putting in the summer, but it does get them a little closer. And it kind of speaks to the difficulty that we're having statewide in finding certified ag instructors. The other one I was going to talk about, Faduma and I went to a session that was put on by, they were from the Mankato School District, and it was titled Engaging All Students in Various Activities, but it took a focus on Somali girls and getting them further engaged in activities. And I think there were some really good takeaways from that on just simple things that I might take for granted that in the Somali culture that just didn't resonate. And so they used a position, what we would call our minority advocate, they called it a family resource coordinator, to help communicate and overcome some of those simple barriers and remove the barriers to get more students engaged. So I thought that was a great session.
Also, Faduma and Monica and myself had the opportunity to present at one of the workshops to give, mostly for the girls, to their experience being on the board. And I'd just like to compliment them. They did a very good job. And one thing is, the Austin does pick their students a little different than we do. They pick a junior and a senior every year, and then the junior stays on for 2 years and kind of helps train the next new junior. So just something they still have 2 people, but one stays on for 2 years. So just something to think about as we move forward.
How was that one attending? Because I know I attended one a couple years ago. That was very well attended. The school board reps, and that's kind of how we got the concept going.
There were probably 30 people there. And we had, 6 students and 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah.
So what did you girls think of the conference?
I loved it. It was so much fun.
Trish, you went through fire drills, didn't you? Did you learn how to do fire drills in the hotel?
Oh.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Girls did a great job. They followed suit.
Not everyone passed the test. When the fire alarm goes off, you have to exit the building.
Back to that.
Do you guys have any key takeaways that you had?
I think some of the student board reps had some really good ideas of how they stayed in contact with the other students and how they made sure that they were representing everyone. A few of them had suggestion box put at the high school and middle school level so that if students have issues that they need brought up, they have somewhere they could take them. And the student representatives kept track of that.
It sounded like they were really involved in their schools and that, yeah.
Very good. Any information on the school board goal update?
Just one thing I would note, there's a legislative town hall meeting January 28th at the YMCA at 4 o'clock. So Senator Dave, Representative Slazinski will be there, and I think one other. So anyway, an opportunity from a legislative advocacy point. Very good.
Administrator's report.
A couple things, and I'll just try to highlight a few things from each of the Here's reports. In my report, there's an enrollment update at the beginning of January. There were 2,475 students enrolled in kindergarten through 12th grade. That's an increase of 5 students from last month, or December, I should say, and that's an increase of 166 students from last year. I also included information about the MASA, Minnesota Association of School Administrators legislative platform. Since that's one of the school board goals, I will continue to try to highlight those and provide those for you from professional organizations as they become available. From Tiffany's early childhood report, there's some information about the inaugural Snowball event, which was a father-daughter dance that was held on January 15th, and I actually spoke to a father who took his daughter to that. I spoke with him today, and he shared that it was very enjoyable for both of them. So good event for us to start out with. And then there is also, I highlighted an update on the Little Cups preschool, which is our version of reaching potentials through recommended practices, which is RP2, which is a grant program that we're able to participate in through the Minnesota Department of Education. I did not see Darcy's report earlier, so I can't share anything that's in there. In Jeremy's West Side report, he has some information about PBIS at West Side, which they have affectionately termed above the line. They really focus on the above the line behaviors. And then there's also some information about updates on 504 planning and different actions taking place in the district. From Mary Kay's middle school report, a variety of student council activities, updates. She indicated that their school will be applying for exemplar school status recognition through PBIS again, and also some numbers and information relative to the ASP or after-school programming that's available. Brian always does a nice job of putting a summary of his report in there. I would highlight that he included some scheduling information. Hard to believe that it's starting for next year already. Also a variety of academic information from term 2 or semester 1. And certainly congratulations to Thomas Fisher as he was chosen as the KSFY Touchstone Energy Scholar of the Week. And got a nice video that I think was available online for that. Mr. Remy's, Bruce's activities report. The movie, I believe, is out right now called Concussion. And the State High School League certainly has done, as schools have as well, done a variety of things to really focus on concussion prevention and recognition, both the coaches, athletes, and also officials. So we shared some information relative to that with the release of that movie Concussion, and also he put some information in his report about some successful holiday tournaments that were held in Marshall, and certainly they don't happen without work from a lot of different people. I'll let Mr. Lamprecht highlight his report. From Amanda's report, Director of Teaching and Learning, information about upcoming testing and kind of what the calendar looks like, and for student assessments, and also sort of an overview of the SIOP, Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol pilot that we're going to be starting here this year, just to learn more about it and see how it works. Jackie's report, Assistant Director of Special Education, a couple things relative to paraprofessionals that have been happening, and then also an update on our special education student count, including enrollment at the Marshall Learning Center. I'll let the ladies present there. So, Mr. Lamprecht.
I'll defer to you
Oh, thank
to
you.
begin.
Thank you. All right, so Parkside had conferences earlier this month, and Westside has parent-teacher conferences tonight. Junior high knowledgeable won 8th place at Regents, and middle school is having their jazz band ice cream concert on Thursday. And the senior high knowledgeable didn't happen, but last Monday we had a presenter at school, and she talked about drunk driving, which was very interesting because I don't think anybody else has heard it before, and she had a really good story.
Speech team held a Speak to Compete workshop last Saturday, or 2 Saturdays ago, and they'll be competing for the first time this Saturday in Chanhassen. The Speech Spectacular, which is a big event at the high school, will be held January 29th through the 30th. Girls hockey competed against Fairmont. Gymnastics and wrestling competed against Wyndham. The wrestling team won. The gymnastics team did not. And Business Professionals of America will be competing at Regions on this Friday.
Good, thank you.
Many of the items on my report we're going to be talking about here shortly because they include like the budget update and the bid process, those things that are going to be acted on here shortly. One of the things that I did want to mention is that we have a monthly district office meeting, and at the last meeting that we had, Scott and I presented a plan called SMOVE. That's Smile and Move, and really it's about enhancing what we feel is already good customer service that we provide in the district office, and of course with maintenance and also with our technology folks. And so that's something that we're going to be working on and going through over the next number of months. So that's the highlight of my report at this point.
We move on to our discussion items. Our first reading of policy 711, 12, 13, 14, and 720. This is our first reading. Anybody have any questions?
I would just make a note to take a close look at those. In a number of cases, there's been quite a few changes that have been made in those policies. 711 is one of those, and so just make sure you take a good close look.
Moving on to our action items, approval of asbestos abatement bid and alternatives. I'll make a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Any discussion?
This was quite a process as it turned out. You'll see that there's a lot of attachments that are included with the actual motion, and this is really part of the safety, health and safety project that we're doing through ESG Honeywell. And we have a company called IEA, which is Institute for Environmental Assessment, that actually walked us through the bid process. And we selected initially, with the lowest bid, a company called Lindstrom Environmental. And I think a couple days before we actually, I think, had posted and recommended Lindstrom Environmental because they had the lowest bid. Last Wednesday, they came forward and saying that they will not honor the bid, that they just dropped out of the race, so to speak. And so we were kind of left in a bind, but working through IEA and contacting and visiting with the Lindstrom folks, they were willing to ante up the difference between their bid, which is the lowest bid, and then the next lowest bid, which is Mavo, who we are recommending now. And we have received that check. We did receive that check on Friday, so we're basically even. And so I would recommend that we move forward with Mavo Systems for our asbestos abatement project, which again is in conjunction with the air handler, health and safety dehumidification project that you're going to be hearing about in just a minute or two. Any questions that you might have?
Hearing none, we'll vote. Approval of the Honeywell ESG mechanical ventilation bid and alternatives. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second, it's open the floor. It's open.
Mr. Joe Henn is here this evening. Did you want to share any details of the process? Joe is with ESG Honeywell and has been working in close contact with the school district throughout this whole process and has brought us to this point.
So thanks for having me here this evening to share the results of the public bid opening on December 22nd, and we're very pleased to announce that the numbers came in not only where we would be, but well below where we had hoped they would be. So currently we're fine-tuning a budget, an all-encompassing project budget that includes the ventilation project here in this facility this summer. Also the energy project that we're, I'd say 75% complete with in some of your other facilities. The project budget includes, as Bruce talked about now, abatement, includes all the fees, all of the QZAP, bond fees, legal fees. So it's an all-encompassing budget. So again, we are about 6% under budget. And if you have any questions on a couple of the attachments, we could answer those.
There were 5 different bid packages.
Yes.
That we had: mechanical, electrical, general construction, temperature controls, testing, adjusting balance, TAB, and very pleased with the results.
So again, we, All Energy Services Group, we act as your construction manager. So we have brought the results of the bids and a letter of recommendation for your consideration. And would you like me to go through the recommendations tonight, or you could do that, Bruce, or should we take some questions first if there are any?
Well, I think just in each of the categories, in the category, we're recommending Bisbee Plumbing and Heating, and electrical is Meyer Electric. General construction is Doom and Kuipers. Temperature controls, we only had one proposal there, and that's Johnson Controls. And then the testing, adjusting, and balancing was Balancing Professionals out of Sioux Falls. And so those are our recommendations to move forward and to award those bids.
Is there a reason why there's only one temperature control bid?
Yes, we currently have Johnson Controls in the building. So when that's the case, you typically expand your current system. It would be very cost prohibitive to remove that system and put in a new system.
Bill, can I ask one question about on the bid from mechanical from Bisbee and Chapel? Alternate 4, there's about $170,000 difference between their 2 bids. Have we verified that the $44,500 bid from Bisbee for that alternate is correct? That seems like a really large difference, I guess, knowing what chiller capacity for alts 1 through 3 specifically means. It just seems like it's a number we probably maybe have already.
Yeah, so we're comfortable that the Bisbee alternate number is correct.
Okay.
Alternate 4 is simply a base bid chiller, and alternate 4 was to simply increase the size of the chiller a small amount to take care of some additional air handlers that were added to the system. So I'd be more suspect of the 212. I think that may have been inherited.
Thank you, Joe.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Joe.
Any other comments? Vote. It's approved. Approval of our financial 2016 budget. Another motion. And I'll second. Open.
Just a couple of highlights in regards to the final 2015-2016 budget. On the revenue side, we had a significant positive adjustment, special education revenue adjustment, both for the general fund and for our transportation revenue fund. And so that was one of the things that certainly altered what we had as far as revenue coming in. And of course, our increasing enrollment has driven a lot of our numbers upward as far as the revenue that we receive. And so those on the revenue side are the couple main factors that we have for an increased amount of revenue in the general fund, and as I had said, the transportation fund also. On the expenditure side, the things that are included are the additional staffing that we've had over the past number of months, whether teachers or other positions that we've added. The cost of the portables and that whole process is budgeted and is in the general fund. The settlement is included and budgeted for in this budget. And all of this, again, is based on most current information and certainly most current enrollment. And the fund balance actually for the general fund, when everything was considered, actually dropped about $27,000 from what the revised budget was. You can see that right there. Tricia just moved that back up. In that third section for the general, no, there. It's there. Thank you. But you also see the transportation fund projected fund balance increased by almost $100,000. And again, that was from that special education funding reimbursement adjustment that we received, and it's the latest information. Can't guarantee that that's going to stay the same by the time we get to the end of the year, but that's the reason for that significant increase in the fund balance for transportation. So I would recommend approval of the final 2015-2016 budget.
Any questions? Vote, please. Approved. Approval of review and comment submission to the Minnesota Department of Education. I'll make the motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
This review and comment document that you have now is hot off the press. Tricia and Dave and Eric made some changes maybe about 10 minutes before the 5 board meeting. But maybe, Dave, you just want to step up to the podium and just talk a little bit about just a couple of the highlights in regards to the review and comment that's going to be, upon your approval, sent to the Commissioner of Education.
Hello, members of the board. What a nice night to be here to hear those nice comments. Not every day you get to hear what's good about some of your work, so thank you. The main components, and thank you all for taking a careful review of that also. More eyes on it, more, we're all connected to it. So the main clarifications that are in your document, as you see right now, is essentially addressing the Parkside. And when the building shifts from essentially it's a K2 building with one early childhood room in it. It's shifting from a pre-K, K1. Okay, so it's becoming less grade level, more early childhood. So what happens is the final solution here essentially has it as an early childhood, which is pre-K, K1 facility, which has a reduced grade level capacity because there's, instead of one early childhood room, there's 9 early childhood rooms included in that complex. So we essentially have less grade level rooms available for your K1 population, which all the demographics are based on. So we had to, that's how it's positioned. So we've reworded that component to make that clear that this is a grade level shift in that building. Capacity is reduced, but we're basically at the projected capacity for K1, and we're also accommodating the future planned projections of 180 early childhood students at that building. So essentially you can add that on top of the 440 capacity. So that was a clarification that was made. I think that was really the primary one.
With the new plan and all that, whereas the 440 and 180, that's still at capacity of that building.
No, and that was one of the, I think, initial questions was with a capacity of 440 with a projection of 392 for grade level K1. That's the 8-year out projection that we're at. The concern when we met with the focus groups, the early childhood focus groups, the K1 focus groups, which was a very good session that we were able to have with each of those. There was a concern that we were basically achieving with this long-range plan a buffer of about 8 students in this building for the capacity. So essentially what was planned into this was the anticipation of a couple of more grade level classrooms and even one more early childhood room to handle some projected anticipated growth, because the current enrollment for the last couple of years has been documented as exceeding the projections that Hazel Reinhardt put together for you. So you guys are overachieving right now. So there was a cautionary feel to those meetings where, my goodness, if we're just hitting the capacity with an 8-year outlook, we may be short, and it's not entirely unfounded. I think even the number you shared tonight was the highest number I've ever seen. So there's a bit of a buffer. It's essentially a 2-classroom buffer at the grade level.
And the number $38,810,000 is the number that will be moved forward at this point in time to the commissioner in the review and comment document. That cannot change upward. It can go downward. And really there's maybe 2 items that are still kind of out there. The location, specific location of where the new building would be on this site. That's one of the items. And then the other is what Kurt had presented and what our staff saw at Austin, coming to a resolution as to what the final plan is going to be there. And so we're going to have discussion coming up here shortly with ATS&R and then with the staff to make a determination on what we're going to actually land on.
Bruce brings up a very good point. Final location of the elementary isn't cited definitively yet. We know it's in the southern portion of the existing middle school site. Where it lies in that, with some of the challenges of the soil to the east that we're finding with the preemptive soil borings that you've done wisely so. Will it fit right in the middle? May involve a slight displacement of an existing play field. Will it go more to the west even more so? That would place it at or near or on the track. Then at that point, track is in kind of state of disrepair anyway, so it's not a totally bad thing. So if we could regain a track, bottom line is I've got a couple of $100,000 in the budget allowance for unknown site conditions, which is very normal with a new building this size. Certainly is it's on the light side, it's not on the heavy side. But in addition to that, I've got $300,000 on top of that for this. If we need to reconstruct the track, if we need to relocate some play fields, if we need to do a little more soil correction, it's a reasonable place to be with this type of final decision to be made. The other one, the play station concept, the play center concept that you've seen at Austin, something we did review with the focus groups. They were intrigued with it. That's why they went on the tour. It's nice to hear that they found some successful results. It did take a letter to the state Department of Education when we initiated that with that district. The principal wrote a letter explaining this concept because it is a new concept, was at least at that time about 4 years ago. And the State Department acknowledged that and received that with welcome. So they accepted that. And what it is, it's really a deviation from the state guideline for kindergarten classroom size. Instead of a 1,200 minimum, we were at a 900 or an 850. So, yeah, it does have a lot, and I think the advent of it is really with the all-day kindergarten. That's really where that concept works the best, when you're literally an all-day kindergarten student. I know that's what you do here, so I think that it makes some sense, Will it save some money? Yes. If we do not need to convert 6 classrooms into 2 or 4 kindergarten rooms, because that's what's in the plan right now, then we can save that remodeling cost. So how much do you save? If you can just move into those existing classrooms, call them kindergarten rooms, rename them with a creative sign on the outside, it's a big savings, about $500,000. If you say, well, they're still not kindergarten rooms, we still need to redo cabinetry, we still need to do this and that, and some other things, then maybe it's a $200,000 to $300,000 savings. So I think we're on the good side of it. We've got a normal presentation to the state. If we want to deviate that, like Bruce said, it would be on the downward side, and we'd save money doing it. So those are the 2 big things.
Are there any, in Austin it was just all kindergarten.
It was.
This building isn't going to be.
Nope.
Right. So does that pose any different thoughts in regards to whether or not that works in that building? When you have, pre-K, K, and 1 versus an all just 1 kindergarten.
K is basically on the west side. They're on the other side, so to speak, of the cafeteria, the FIAD. They're kind of on the other side of the world in a way. They're over there. That's their center. So it's really that K-1 mix. And what I'm intrigued with the final solution that the focus group came up with is we integrated the K and the 1 together. And we acknowledged that there's a strength of that. And we kind of excited about that because they really haven't experienced that yet because kindergarten's always been on the other side of the world with a couple of other integrated. But now it's going to be total integration. The concept of restrooms is going to be consolidated near the kindergarten rooms, so they have their own restrooms to go to, and we're doing some minor modifications to the existing restrooms to make them more open and usable for the kindergarten students. So that would be a good question for the focus group again, to see if there's any concerns about that. But right now I see their focus is integrating those 2 grade levels together. I wouldn't think it would. And I love what you said about that as far as how those students go out to the PlayStation, they do that large motor activity, they come back to the classroom, and now they're learning. It's kind of like recess periods. And
a little separation, I think.
It really is, and I think that's
interesting
versus having those other things in the room all the time. Exactly. Very interesting observation.
Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Call a vote. It's approved. Anything else from the good of the comments? Thank you.